Excellent. All right. Welcome, everyone. Today we're talking about I'm so afraid of being wrong. And I think this is like a perfect time to do this. Halloween's coming up. We're all facing some of our fears and some of the things that haunt us. And for many of us, that fear of being wrong, not as in making a mistake, which we all do, but for being wrong is very powerful. And then any little flaws we have or any mistakes we make echo off of that and ping off of that and make us feel very shameful. And I think it's a perfect time to do some trick or treating with that part of us that's really afraid all the time and very shame filled. So I'm Cathy Vertilli from the intimacydojo.com and thrivingnow.com here with the amazing Rick Wilkes from thrivingnow.com. And we're going to be working with you on your fears around this. And so if you'd like to share in the chat while we're going over some of this early stuff, where do you feel wrong? Like, are there certain areas in your life where you're really pinged around this? Or is it your whole life you walk around with it? Or when you're doing something new, where do you feel this like fear of being wrong? How about you, Rick?
Thank you, Cathy. It's one of those things that can be working underneath the surface.
Yeah.
I used to say I'm sorry
All the time. I still do.
all the time, and I still am above average at
Yeah.
easily saying I'm sorry, even when I'm not clear why.
Yeah, there's a
And
typhoon in India. Oh, I'm so sorry. Wait, I
when I
had
start
nothing to do with
tapping,
it.
and if you're new to tapping, you'll be seeing us do this at thrivingnow.com/tapping is a free guide. We're not going to be teaching EFT tapping today, but you can usually follow along and invite you to do so. Um, so for me, one of the things that still is and activates that feeling in my core, like, oh, I'm wrong. And I in the newsletters that we put out inviting you, there was a little test of how to tell kind of where how big a deal this is for you. Um, and you say, as you tune into an area which is a little tender for you, like for me, it's relationships. If if somebody that I'm with doesn't look happy, there is often, if I'm tired or been trying to make things right, and there'll be a sense of like, uh-oh, I'm wrong. And it's a little different than I did something wrong. And what we can do is if you as you tune into a situation where you get that feeling of I am wrong, just say it out loud. I am wrong. And notice how strong it feels in your core, 0 to 10. And that's you're not trying to be medically accurate. We're giving kind of a range, like for you, like how intense does it feel? Um, Today was a bit of a like difficult day. Like baby was crying a lot, and we were trying to get ready for a guest tomorrow, and everything was taking a lot longer. Um, and I noticed, which often comes up when I'm doing one of these real skills workshops, like, oh, I've got this feeling like I am wrong because my my baby girl is really unhappy or my partner looks stressed. I am wrong. And right now, as I tune into that, it's as high as a 6.
Mm.
Now, if it's above a 2 for you, it's affecting your energy. It's affecting your sense of yourself. It's affecting your behavior. That's what I've come to know.
Yeah, I think it becomes a prevalent note in our system. And that shame as we walk around the world as adults, people can pick up on that. And I think it's sort of a weakness. People can know that, oh, that person doesn't feel really confident in themselves. And I think people will try to steer us by it. They're like, oh, if I can figure out how to make that person feel more wrong, I can use it as reins to get them to do what I want or to cross their boundaries or to conform to what I need. And many of us learned this when we were very, very little. It could be maybe our parents were really overwhelmed and blamed us, which is a really common practice. If someone's overwhelmed, they can either blame themselves or blame outward. And we might have taken that on. Someone in the chat shared that they were being queer growing up and trans uh, is part of that, and in a Catholic upbringing. And for me, I know I'm identify as queer. I date awesome people. I don't particularly care what gender they are, but growing up, there wasn't any role model for me liking women, and I got a lot of shame for that. I held one of my friend's hand in sixth grade, actually comforting her because her parents had died. But people were like, "Are you gay?" And I didn't even know what gay meant. And I went home and my mom was just like, just don't hold anyone's hand anymore at school. That's just not right. But I knew something was off, something was not okay. So like we internalize that. It's just like if there's not role models for who we are in the world, or how we walk through the world, then we might get that sense of, oh, I don't fit. We don't see ourselves like I always go back to the Sesame Street where they had the four pictures and like which one doesn't belong. And I felt like that person that didn't belong because there wasn't anyone talking about what I was feeling or express, what you're curious about. Like, oh, and I'm not allowed to talk about it. So when you're feeling these feelings, we want to have a safe space here where you can explore them and discover you're not alone. So I really appreciate all the shares. Someone else said I have a constant nagging feeling that there's something wrong with me, but I don't know what exactly it is. And I often find myself stuck in the mindset of trying to hunt and search it out with the idea that if only I could remove it, I'd be okay. Um, so yeah, I think there's a lot of that there. So as we're exploring that, it's just, I think it's important to realize we all have different reasons that we feel like we don't belong. And yet we're all in the same club in that we often don't feel. We feel like there's something that doesn't fit in the world. I think partly because our world wants us all, like, we are sold on TV and media this conventional looking, white, slender, young, fit, happy thing we're supposed to match, the cookie cutters. And nobody actually looks like that, even the models in those photos. And so there's a sense of like, oh, we're not okay. We're not there yet. We're not good enough. And having that sense of wrongness actually works for media because they're advertising. They make their money on selling us stuff. And if we don't feel like we fit, we're going to spend whatever we can to try to get so that we can fit in. We're going to like take whatever class or buy whatever deodorant or toothpaste or clothing or car that will make us feel, let us pretend a little bit that we're a little bit closer to what is okay. And I think that's a never ending hunt because we can never pretend our way into feeling okay. I think that what we want to do is instead, if we can, own that part of us never felt like we belonged or that we have some shame and let ourselves heal that and realize we're amazing just as we are and our difference actually is wonderful.
We're right now landing on one aspect of this, which is I don't fit, didn't fit, never fit, and therefore, oh, I must be wrong. Like that's one doorway that this kind of finds its way into our core. And I'd like to do some tapping on that. So we use tapping to acknowledge an awareness. If it's not true for you, as you tap on it, you'll be like, oh, huh, yeah, this isn't mine. Um, that's great. If you start getting emotional, remember you can ground yourself, and that's okay because that's part of what we do with energy work is we activate it and we bring soothing to comfort points on the meridian system to help shift the energy all the way into our viscera, into our organs and our spine
Every
and our
cell.
core and all those energy centers. So just start whatever you're feeling. We tap on the side of the hand first. Even though I didn't fit in,
Even though I didn't fit in,
never really fit in with them,
I never really fit in with them.
and a part of me decided that I was wrong.
and a part of me decided I was wrong.
Ouch.
Ouch.
Top of the head. I did not fit in.
I did not fit in.
Eyebrow. Sometimes I still don't fit in.
Sometimes I still don't fit in.
Side of the eye. Pretty much every day I feel like I don't fit in.
Pretty much every day I feel like I don't fit in.
Under the eye. So often I feel like I don't fit.
So often I feel like I don't fit.
Under the nose. Does that mean I am wrong?
Does that mean I'm wrong?
Chin. Part of me is convinced I am wrong.
Part of me is convinced I am wrong.
Collarbone. I am wrong.
I am wrong.
Under the arm. I am wrong.
I am wrong.
Top of the head. I am wrong.
I am wrong?
Eyebrow. What if I'm wrong for being wrong?
What if I'm wrong for being wrong?
Side of the eye. What if I'm wrong about being wrong?
What if I'm wrong about being
Under
wrong?
the eye. Oh, I would so not fit in.
I would so not fit in.
Under the nose. It's really confusing to me.
It's really confusing to me.
Chin. I didn't fit.
I didn't fit.
Collarbone. Often I don't fit.
Often I don't fit.
The arm. And fitting in is the most important thing, isn't it?
Fitting in is the most important thing, isn't it?
Of that conformity. That's what I'm looking for.
Conformity, that's what I'm looking for. But our survival brain does look for that, because when about the time that part of our brain, our social survival brain, was forming, we were in small communities. And if our community didn't love and support us and respect us, if we broke a leg, they weren't going to help us. If the food was scarce, we might not get it. So there is a part of our brain that is looking, how well do I fit in with the people of power? How well do I conform? And there were, survival does work in terms of DNA. Like if I conform enough to get offspring, then I've kind of won the evolutionary gambit, so to speak. So the survival brain that meshed and fit in was more likely to pass DNA down
Could you
through the years.
just do a tapping for us about like that primal feeling of I'm not fitting in, so I must,
Yeah,
they're looking at me like I'm wrong, so I
yeah,
must be kind of thing. Would that be?
yeah. Karate chop. Hey, survival brain.
Hey, survival brain.
I get it.
I get it.
It's a horrible feeling
It's a horrible feeling.
when people look at us and you know that we're not fitting in.
Yeah. When people look at us and we know that we're not fitting in,
They're kind of judging us,
definitely judging us,
looking down on us,
looking down on us,
wondering why we didn't know better.
wondering why we didn't know better, didn't fit in,
It's a
didn't go
horrible
along.
feeling. Yeah.
Really sucks.
And
It hurts.
I have good news for you.
Cathy has good news for us.
A long time ago, it was really important to mesh with those around us.
A long time ago, it was really important to mesh with those around us.
Now there's 7 billion people on the
Now
planet.
there's 7 billion people. We
Most
definitely don't all fit in with each other.
most of us are connected by internet,
Most of us are connected by internet,
and we can find each other.
and we can find each other like we
On
are.
this call alone, there's people from all over the world
On this call alone, there are people from all over the world
who really get what we're talking about.
who really get what we're talking about, what
And
it's
that's,
like not to
yeah,
fit
it's
in.
beautiful.
That's a relief.
Top of the head. We don't fit in with everyone.
We do not fit in with everyone.
Eyebrow, and I get that that scares you sometimes.
And I get that I get scared sometimes.
Side of the eye. But there are people that really do get us.
There are people that really do get us.
Under the eye, it's okay to spend time trying to find them.
It's okay to spend time trying to find them.
Under the nose, rather than trying to pretend we're like those other people.
Yeah. Rather than try to pretend we're like those other people.
Chin, because that is really wrong.
Because that's really wrong.
Collarbone, it's
Really
protective.
wrong for me.
Yeah. It's protective. Protective.
It is protective.
Under there, but it's not authentic.
It's not authentic.
top of the head, and we want to be real in this life.
And we want to be real and free in this life.
Yeah. Just take a breath and notice how that feels to you. We're not saying that if you're in the middle of something with you're confronted with a bunch of people and you feel unsafe, you shouldn't pretend. That can be useful at times, like to get through an incident, but I don't think any of us want to live our entire life pretending. We want to be able to be ourselves and find people that can really see us. And that's one reason I love these groups that Rick calls together, because we're not alone. We're here together healing these old wounds. And I think about how early a lot of this forms. I see Rick and Jem with his partner with the little baby Adira. Many of you see the baby at the bottom of the newsletter. I don't know if you're like me, but I scroll all the way down as soon as I get the newsletter and see what pictures of Adira, and then I go back up to the top and read the newsletter. But I watch them with her, and they are both very educated, very aware parents, and they spend so much of their energy and time taking care of her, and they still get frustrated sometimes. I've never seen them shame her, but I've seen them, like, their bags under their eyes, and they're just like, she just won't stop crying. And I can imagine that parents that were less aware, less resourced, less willing to put themselves out could easily shame her and, like, look what she. And I've actually heard my mother say this. She said this to my niece. It was Christmas Eve, and my niece wouldn't go to bed. She was very excited. She was 5. There were so many presents under the tree, and she was like bouncing all over the place. And my mom had told her to go to bed 3 times, and my niece didn't. She was like running around excited, and my mom turned to her and said, "You ruined Christmas for me." And that little girl's face crumpled. She, like, really believed that this her grandmother, who she adored, had had her Christmas ruined. And I know she carries that. We've talked about it. So parents may be doing the best they can, and they're overwhelmed, maybe just too much. And some of them came from really broken parents themselves, where they just don't have the skills, they don't have the knowledge. And a bunch of people have shared in the chat too about a different religion. Christianity is big on original sin, and, like, whatever religion you've come up through, a lot of us have learned shame from that. There's a big difference between shame, where I feel bad, I am wrong, and guilt. Oh, I did that thing wrong, and I can repair and figure out how to do it better.
This touches on another doorway. We're having a good time, or we're feeling very much ourselves. And then someone, you ruined something, or you're wrong, or, and, I notice even at 7 years old, um, the brain of a 7-year-old has a hard time, like, differentiating between doing something that's dangerous or disturbing, um, or disrespectful, and being wrong. Like, it's just dangerous. It's not right for our house, but there can be this, you can see the expression. It's not a micro expression. It's a real, like, oh, this really landed. And so I'm tender that, it's almost impossible um, for us to make it through without a little bit of this. Some people, aren't oriented. Their neurodiversity doesn't have them even thinking that they're ever wrong. Um, but for those of us that are sensitive and empathetic and can feel it, there can be a landing on it.
Yeah,
So I'd
definitely.
like to do a tapping on, I don't even know what I did.
Yes.
Even though I don't even know what I did,
Even though I don't even know what I did.
they're very upset,
They're very
and
upset.
it's very personal.
It's very personal.
They're upset with me.
They're upset with me.
I'm the one who's wrong.
I'm the one who's wrong.
I am wrong.
I am wrong.
Top of that, I don't know what I did.
I don't know what I did.
It must be just because I exist.
It must be just because I exist.
Side of the eye. I am wrong.
I am wrong.
Under the eye. They look at me like I'm wrong.
They look at me like I'm wrong.
On the nose. They looked at me like I was wrong.
They looked at me like I was wrong.
Jen, I don't even know what I did.
I don't even know what I did.
Hold on. And I still felt horrible.
And I still felt horrible.
It landed right in my identity.
It landed right in my identity.
I don't even know what I did.
I don't even know what I did.
Doesn't make sense what they were blaming me for.
It doesn't make sense what they were blaming me for.
And still I am wrong.
Still, I'm wrong. I think that's so profound because often people, our society, we're trained to be polite. And if I'm frustrated, I'm having a bad day, the thing that I may blow up about something that's completely unrelated to the thing that's really getting me upset. So it might be that, you know, I'm just exhausted. I don't want to clean up after the kids anymore. My boss yelled at me. The car has a flat tire. And then someone comes in with muddy shoes. And I'm like, God damn it. Why did you wear those shoes in the house? Like it's a blow up that's really not that related. And so it can be confusing. And when we're little, there's a certain investment in having our parents be sane and right. Realizing that our parents are broken when we're little is terrifying because they're the ones driving the semi that we're living in. It's like if they're off the rails, the whole world is terrifying. So making
Pause there
ourselves,
for a second.
yeah,
I think it's worth amplification just in
yeah,
case it sort of went by. Um, you said that knowing how that our parents are broken when we're a child is
terrifying.
is terrifying. And it's so much better, quote, quote, for our psyche to be wrong,
Yeah,
to be to be the one that is is to blame, to be the one that's wrong, because then there's hope
yeah,
because
I can be
we're
better. I can
growing
feel,
and
yeah,
we learn to read, we learn to write, we learn to use the toilet. Maybe I can learn how to
not be
not be
wrong.
quite so wrong. So if that was true, as someone in the chat said narcissistic mother, I believe it was, if you were raised by people who um, as you look at them now with an adult's perspective, you can be like, wow, they did not have their shit together, to say the least. Um, or they were on a spectrum of behavior that really didn't work for you. Maybe they used guilting and shaming as a strategy. Maybe they used violence as a strategy. Um, this is a big topic. I'm just honoring that childhood stuff. Um, we have a program that gives a little bit more of how we go about it, the childhood trauma relief. It's part of the Circle membership. You can buy it separately too. That's not as much a plug as just honoring that it's a big deal.
Mhm.
And even though my parents weren't awesome,
Even though my parents weren't always awesome,
yeah, and it wasn't possible really for me to see them clearly.
it wasn't really possible for me to see them
That
clearly.
would have been terrifying, actually.
That would have been terrifying, actually.
So I assumed that I was wrong.
So I assumed that I was wrong.
Up it. I assumed I was wrong.
I assumed I was wrong.
Eyebrow. I was assuming I was doing wrong.
I assumed I was doing wrong.
Side of the eye. And clearly I must have been wrong.
And clearly I must have been wrong.
And they shamed me enough.
They shamed me enough.
And I must be wrong.
I must be wrong.
Jen, what if I'm not?
What if I'm not?
Hold on. Could I have really handled not being wrong
Could I have really handled not being wrong
while they were making me wrong?
while they are making me wrong?
Could I have handled that?
Could I have handled that?
It's hard enough to even imagine it now.
It's hard enough to even imagine it now.
It raises some big emotions.
It raises some big emotions.
It really was not treated fairly,
It really was not treated
to
fairly,
say the least.
to say the least.
the
That's a,
temperature check for folks. How are you feeling? If there's something that you'd like to share, feel free to drop that in the chat. Do you want to open it up for hands raised at this point too? Or
um, I'd love to just read one more tapping, just anchoring us deciding that we were wrong when we were little was really smart. Our culture is still, there's still, especially, I don't know other cultures as well, but in the US, it's kind of that puritanical, you break the kid, you shame them. Like a kid that's like crushed under shame is much easier to control and is more likely to obey what you say and not question it than a kid that's like, I'm an okay kid. I don't want to do this thing you're telling me to do. So there is an underlying woven in there. And also our little psyches just could not handle the fact that the people that were driving the bus were not really on top of it. It's like this is really, they have control over my entire life and they don't really have it together. It's terrifying. So just like karate chop, I just want to send appreciation
just want to send appreciation
to my younger self.
to my younger self.
Hey kiddo,
Hey, kiddo,
when you were little,
when you were little,
you decided you were wrong
you decided you were wrong,
and mom and dad were okay.
and mom and dad were okay.
And I just want to let you know I think you're really smart.
And I just want to let you know I think you were really smart.
That was the best choice you could have made, Latin,
That
back
really
then.
was the best choice you could have made back then.
And it probably saved our sanity.
I'm starting to feel that it saved our sanity
And certainly our behinds.
and certainly our behinds.
Top of the head. Thank you, sweetheart.
Thank you, sweetie.
Eyebrow, that was really tough.
That was horribly tough.
Side of the eye, you sacrificed your sense of rightness.
Yeah, you sacrificed your sense of rightness
Under the eye, so you could survive.
so you could survive.
Under the nose, and you did a great job.
And you did a great job. I'm here.
Chin, we made it through.
We make it through.
Collarbone, and I'm going to invite you now
And I'm going to invite you now
under the arm to help me heal the sense of wrongness.
to help me heal this sense of wrongness.
Top of the head, because we don't really need it anymore.
We actually don't need it anymore.
We can release the shame.
We can release the shame that holds it in place.
Yeah. Nice deep breath.
Ooh, and, if you feel like shaking your hands is helpful, rubbing your hands together, pushing your feet into the ground, shifting a little bit, remembering that these types of beliefs, they land in our core. And so we're using physical movements, letting the rest of your body also move a bit to the extent that it feels right to you. Um, and I'd like to invite us to check back in if you had one of those examples where you felt like I am wrong. Go back to it again and just see if the feeling, the sensation of it changes and the number.
And there's nothing wrong if it actually feels a little more intense. I use the analogy a lot of times we're numbed out, just like when we're wearing shoes that are too tight. And when we finally get the shoe off, or we at least can become aware of it, it's like, oh, that hurts more than I was aware of. So just because if things do feel a little more intense, that doesn't necessarily mean there's anything wrong. It just means you're tuning back into a part of you that you distanced and numbed out for a long time. So, and someone shared in the chat, like there's a sense of back then even feeling wrong for even existing. And if our parents are really overwhelmed and very shamed themselves, that's what they can project outward. It's a way for them to not feel it themselves or to cope with their day to day life. And that can
I
be really
feel a
hard.
tapping on that one.
Yeah.
Can I
Yeah.
keep them? Even though they made me wrong for even existing.
Even though they made me wrong for even existing.
That's so wrong.
That's so wrong.
It filled the room.
It filled the room.
I had no choice but to take it in.
I had no choice but to take it in.
They made me feel wrong for even existing.
They made me feel wrong for even existing.
That's just so wrong.
That's just so wrong.
That's really wrong.
That's really wrong.
That's really wrong.
That's really wrong.
It's wrong to treat a child that way.
It's wrong to treat a child that way.
It's wrong to treat any human that way.
It's wrong to treat any human that way.
That they're wrong for even existing?
That they're wrong for even existing.
That's so wrong.
That's so wrong.
And it just filled the space.
And it just filled the space.
And I admit I was a little porous.
And I admit that I was a little porous.
Kind of soaked in.
It kind of soaked in.
Their wrongness soaked in.
There it
Ah!
was. Soaked in.
Ah, good thing I'm nourishing myself right now
Good thing I'm nourishing myself right now.
and acknowledging some of the dynamics that existed.
And acknowledging some of the dynamics that existed. And I like that it, like porous, either whether it's stone or a sponge, you can rinse that out. It's not stuck forever. Whatever washed in can wash out as well. So, and if you're feeling a lot of sadness about this, if you can honor it. In our society, we're really taught that we're not supposed to feel things. We just push them over to the side and they'll fester and ferment till we die. It's not how it really is. If you're feeling it right now, just let yourself notice the feelings. As we tap, that will help it clear. But there's only a certain amount of that feeling there. And when you can just be with it with some compassion, it starts healing. And we actually build up muscles for being with those feelings more so that we can just little microdoses of it and we start getting stronger and we start healing more of it. And then we can say, hey, you know what? That was never mine. That was theirs. And I can love
Pause for a
myself.
moment and let
Yeah.
us, we can be with the feelings if you want. Ah, maybe you'd lead us in a tapping on it's wrong to feel certain things.
Karate chop. Even though I struggle with feeling certain things,
Even though I struggle with feeling certain things.
and those same people taught me just to stuff it down and be quiet.
And the same people taught me to stuff it down and be quiet.
Those are the people that made me really sad
Those are the people that made me really sad
and angry and shame filled.
and angry and shame filled.
And I haven't been able to touch those feelings for a long time.
And I haven't been able to touch all of those feelings for a while, long
It's
time.
okay. It's okay to feel them in this space right now.
It's okay to feel them in this space right now.
I'm in a safe space
I'm in a safe space
and I'm loved.
and I'm loved.
Top of the head. I can feel this right now.
I can feel this right now,
Eyebrow just for a moment.
just for a moment,
Side of the eye, and I'll build up that muscle
and I'll build up that muscle
under the eye so I can heal this faster.
so I can heal this faster
Under the nose and clean out all these old emotions.
and clean out some of these old emotions.
Chin, it's a sensation in my body.
The sensation in my body.
Collarbone, I'm actually okay feeling it.
I'm actually okay feeling it.
Under the arm, they're legitimate feelings.
They are so legit feelings.
Top of the head, it's time to acknowledge them.
And it really is time to acknowledge them.
Just a gentle breath.
Mm.
And we weren't role modeled that when we were little. Like a lot, for most people, our parents didn't say, oh, I'm feeling really sad. I'm going to feel sad for a little while. It was like, oh, you're crying, eat a cookie. Oh, you're crying. Let me give you something to cry about. There were lots of, like, we were taught to shut things down. And so just being quietly with these, even if it's, when emotions are really intense, I'll just do 20 or 30 seconds, or sometimes it's, 5 seconds, and I'll just breathe with it and then I'll go on to something else. But even that little window, it starts building up that muscle so that you can let stuff move through you.
Let people know we'll take a 7-minute break in about 10, 12 minutes.
Yeah.
Ah, checking in with your body. Um, Feel into your heart space, your throat space, and using your hands. I don't know if you can see, but it's applying some gentle pressure, movement. Maybe bring some sway. Doesn't have to be as big as you're seeing me sway, but just shifting a little bit on your seat bones, maybe shaking. If that's dysregulating for you, can be just stillness, stillness. And some of us are coming up with more specifics, um, events from childhood. Um, I started off like picturing something that's today where I'll feel that wrong feeling. And then as we tapped, that intensity went from a 6 to a 5 to a 4. But then I touched on just a memory of having like cleaned all day and my mom was still unhappy. Like she was stressed. She appreciated what I did, but it hadn't like done what I had hoped, which was to create a kind of we're good, we're connected, that feeling that I needed so much as a child of like, hey, I do these things so that you don't have to, and it makes our world better. What I really need is for that to free up some something, some resource to get my needs met. And so like top of the head, that didn't work.
That didn't work.
I tried so hard.
I tried so hard.
Side of the eye. That didn't work.
That didn't work.
Under the eye. And I did it right
And I did it right.
on the nose, and it didn't work.
And it didn't work.
Chin, it must be me that's wrong.
It must be me that's wrong.
Collarbone, I didn't do anything wrong.
I didn't do anything wrong.
Under the arm, and it didn't work.
And it didn't work.
It must be me that's wrong.
It must be me that's wrong.
I so that acknowledges that sometimes we get this feeling that we're wrong, and it hits at a very tender moment, like right after conception. We haven't done anything wrong, and our parent is not happy to see us. I've worked now with over 50 clients, I am sure, about like how did your mom feel about you when you waved, "Hi mom, I'm here," as a little tiny
Zygote.
presence, right? And it's like, oh no, that wasn't good. You haven't done anything wrong. You implanted, you're growing fine, and you go like, "Hi, mommy," and it's like, no, I don't. This is wrong. This is wrong, and that can also be a time when we land. It lands in our system.
Yeah.
That feeling. Ah,
So do we were take a break in about 10 minutes, is that right?
yes.
Okay. I'm wondering if it's okay. I'd love to talk a little bit about how we hear in our own heads that we're wrong, even though our parents might not be nearby. So the people that taught us we were wrong are not there often, but we still we hear in our heads that we are wrong very loudly, very convincingly, and we believe that sound, the belief in our head. It's a thought, and we believe it. We think it must be true. And one of the I've been doing DNMS for years. It's a developmental needs meeting strategy approach. But their theory is one part of us, when we see that we're being judged harshly by the outside of us, a younger part of us says, I will take that on. I will take that message on and I will carry that message and try to steer us away from this before it happens. So before mom or dad can yell at us, I'm going to yell at us to try to make us behave in ways that'll fit. So, like, a part of us took on that message. It is now in our heads going, you are wrong, trying to make us behave in a way that would be safe when we were little. And that part may not realize that we're not there anymore. Does that make sense? There's like that internalized belief. It doesn't mean it's true. And yet, most of us believe that message in our head. So, I'd love to do just a little tapping around that if that's okay. Karate chop. Even though I believe that voice in my head,
Even though I believe that voice in my head
that echoes what mom and dad said,
echoes what mom and dad said,
and the church and media,
and so many others.
maybe that part is out of date.
The part is starting to feel really out of date.
I appreciate that that part really wanted to protect me.
I appreciate that that part really wanted to protect me.
Thank you for working so very hard all these years.
Thank you for working so very hard all these years.
And maybe you don't have to carry that voice along with you everywhere.
And maybe I don't have to carry this voice along with me everywhere.
Top of the head, if I believed I was wrong back then,
If I believed I was wrong back then,
eyebrow did protect me from some of the criticism.
it did protect me in a kind of warped way from some of the criticism.
Side of the eye, it might have kept me safer.
It might have kept me safer.
Under the eye, but I don't need that constant reminder of wrongness now.
I definitely don't need any constant reminder of wrongness.
Under the nose, what if I just thank that part?
I am thanking that part.
Chin, and inviting that part of me to change her sign.
And inviting that part of me to change their sign.
Collarbone, what if instead of you are wrong,
What if instead of you are wrong?
under the arm, it said you are lovable?
Ah, what if it said you are lovable
Top of the head and wonderful.
and wonderful?
I might try that on for a while.
Ah, I might try that on for a while.
Just take a breath and notice there's nothing wrong if it's too far away. It's just an idea to reach for. It depends on how deep the trauma is around this wrongness, because that is a trauma. Trauma is something that we don't have the resources to deal with. And a deep sense of being wrong is something we didn't know how to deal with. Our survival brain would be like, holy fuck, I don't know how to deal with this. I'm going to die. Trauma, frozen, stuck with this. And every time someone criticizes us when that we have that wounded trauma part that's really sensitive, and someone says, you did that wrong. What were you thinking? It pings off of that and it hurts so bad. And I could never understand. I had colleagues that someone would say, what did you do that for? And they're like, oh yeah, I screwed up. I'll fix it. And I'd be like, huh? Like I'd be like like wanting to flagellate myself, or like feeling like I should quit and go live in a monastery in Alaska where no one could ever see me. And the peer would be like, "Oh yeah, I really screwed that up, didn't I? I don't think it cost more than $1 million. I'll try to do better next time." And I'm like, "Are we different species? Like what just happened?" That person probably didn't have the level of trauma and sense of wrongness. And as we can heal this, we can say, wow, we can make amends, we can clean it up, we can learn, but we don't have to feel like any small criticism or distracted or grumpy look on someone's face is a sign that they notice our wrongness now, and that they're like proof that we are this bad person at our core. So I think we can get to the point where we might be able to have that part of us go, yeah, the little sign, you are wonderful.
What if I can do something wrong
What if I can do something wrong
and not be wrong?
and not be wrong?
What a novel concept.
What a novel concept.
It's sort of ridiculous.
It's sort of ridiculous.
When I do anything even remotely wrong,
When I do anything even remotely wrong?
When I do anything
When I do anything
that doesn't come out perfectly,
that doesn't come out perfectly?
of course I am wrong.
Of course I'm wrong.
What else would I be?
What else would I be?
What else? Who would I be if I wasn't wrong?
Who would I be if I wasn't wrong?
Oh, dang, that's a question.
That's a question.
Who would I be if I wasn't wrong?
Who would I be if I wasn't wrong?
I might do something that's wrong.
I might do something that's wrong.
One of those. I might do something that doesn't work out.
I might do something that doesn't work out.
Is that really a testimony to who I am at my core?
Is that really a testimony to who I am at my
Am
core?
I really wrong, actually wrong in my core?
Am I actually really wrong in my core?
Oh, I've treated myself so wrong.
I've treated myself so
At
wrong.
least I'm consistent.
At least I'm consistent.
Might even try on loving and kind. Wouldn't that be different?
I might even try loving and kind. That would be really different.
Now, if you're a practitioner or you just want to learn how to better do this for yourself, you'll notice that I would dip in to the pain. I would acknowledge, like a voice in my head said, "Don't be ridiculous." So, yeah, that would be ridiculous to actually not see myself as wrong. It wasn't a loud voice, but hey, we have voices in our head. Most people do. And so by being a little a little playful, a little curious, rejecting of the idea even can be freeing. Like um, and asking a deeper question too, like who would I be if I wasn't carrying a sense of I am wrong at all in my core? Would I be someone who just didn't care about whether my partner or friend or something, someone was hurting? I know that that's not true. Would I not care about doing work that matters and doing it so that it often comes out and works out well? Um, I'm pretty sure that if I had even less feeling of wrongness, that my ooh, I'm sorry would be like not tinged with existential like pain. I think that I've been told years ago, I haven't been told it recently, maybe it's changed, but like if I did something that hurt someone, like maybe I said something or I I surprised them by how angry I got about a situation. Um, and what they said is that I definitely would apologize. I'd acknowledge what I did, but there would be this like this over woundedness would come out. Am I explaining this right?
I understand. I think it makes sense to me. I did like
Yeah,
someone
it's
have a
like
small
I'm so
criticism.
sorry. I
Yes.
just like and you almost you can and I have like decades ago. I would almost feel like I need to kill myself just to own that, like
It's just a
the
wash of
because
shame.
it would activate that primal wound. And that's why we do this work, because I've been there, and the healing, every little increment. I know many of you have gone through this and touched on this many times before, and some are fresh that this is alive for you. But if you have really intense feelings about it, acknowledging that, these are deep wounds. When something like I am wrong lands in your core identity,
Mhm.
um, it's profoundly impactful.
Yeah, I would bring like the raw. If I brought someone coffee and brought like almond milk creamer instead of whole milk creamer, and they didn't even really care, I would have this huge reaction like, oh, I've screwed everything up until the end of time. And it would just be really intense. So if you have that, please know there's nothing wrong, but get some help, get some support, because a lot of these wounds are formed in isolation and it's very hard to heal them in isolation. they were formed when we felt alone or attacked, and to have support and someone to help guide us out of that is really powerful. So I really appreciate you sharing that, Rick.
We can also notice then when other people are like they're acknowledging, but it's coming with just a level of like self-flagellation and a sense of worthlessness, like I am wrong. We can pause sometimes and say, hey, can we pause for a moment? Because I'm guessing that you're thinking that this is a big deal at a 10, and I was feeling like it was a deal at a 3,
Or a point
maybe a
three.
point 3. Are we, is that accurate? And if somebody had said that to me around a lot of the things that I would be really in my trauma about, it would have been helpful. Like, yeah, I think that this is huge, that we're that that this is a testimony to what a shitty partner I am or something like that. And be like,
Well,
no, no.
I have a couple friends now that I worked out with them. They tend to be very strong in their criticism when they're unhappy. They come across very strong. And so we've worked it out where they tell me, okay, this is a 3 out of 10, and I'm really unhappy this happened. And like the way they say it without that rating, I might think it's a 10 out of 10 and like our relationship is over, and they can just like, oh, it's really like a 2. But they're just the way they express. I want them to be able to authentically express themselves, but giving that rating really helps me go, okay, I shouldn't be packing my bags to leave for the cancel the rest of the visit. It's not that big.
Oh, break time. I'm going to go ahead and pause the recording. If you're watching
We'll
the
work with some
replay,
people when we come
we
back.
invite you to also take a break here and tend to yourself.
I,
Welcome back. Thank you all for being here, being willing to share what's been said in the chat is deeply meaningful to us as a circle, I believe.
oh, I'm very
There's,
touched by what people are sharing. It
mhm,
helps me feel less alone, and I imagine it's healing to be able to share with each other.
yeah. So there's tapping that we can do about being wrong, loosen that up like we've been doing, and doing wrong. Um, if you've had the identity of I am wrong, chances are when you make a mistake or something doesn't work out, it can land in that same bucket. I have found it helpful to have some other buckets like, huh, well, that didn't work out the way I had hoped. That feels different that, oh, I did it wrong. One of the things we can do with tapping is like, even though a part of me feels like I am wrong because that investment didn't work out, the truth is it didn't work out the way I had hoped.
I think
And
there's
you're giving it a direction. Does that make
yeah, I
sense?
think that there's a sense of we're losing money that we could possibly have if we make a decision like that, or like if we make an investment and it doesn't turn out perfectly, or we lose money. And I think that there's a flow of income to us. Like, I refinanced about a year ago. I refinanced my house and I paid points. I paid $5,000 to lower the interest rate. And then a couple months later, the interest rate came down enough that I wouldn't have had to pay the points. And I was like, oh, I paid that money. But the truth is, even by refinancing with the 5,000, I was saving that. I saved that in less than a year. So like, oh, there's like that cost me. I lost money. A sense of black and white kind of looking at it versus I made the best decision I could, and the universe can flow me abundance in different ways. Does that make sense?
I reserve things like I did wrong around things of my integrity and the things that I really stand for. When it comes to professional stuff, I if I'm not competent in an area and it's coming back to cost me, that's different. If somebody else is wanting things to be magically perfect and they have a perfectionism thing about other people, that's something I have to tap on by being in that kind of world. Like the emotional cost of being with people who expect every fucking thing to go right. Like, okay. uh, yeah. Even though things do not all go right,
Even though things don't all go right,
that does not make me wrong.
it does not make me wrong.
Even though nothing in life is perfect,
Even though nothing in life is perfect,
truth is, I don't even know what perfect would be.
I don't even know what perfect would
A
be.
lot of people get bent out of shape
A lot of people get bent out of
when
shape
things aren't perfect.
when things aren't perfect.
Bet I'm not the only one who feels like they're wrong,
I bet I'm not the only one who feels like they're wrong,
including some of those arrogant bosses
including some of those arrogant bosses
that have to have me be perfect.
that have to have me be perfect,
Side of the eye, that have to have everything be perfect,
that have to have everything be perfect,
that can't allow any mistakes,
that can't allow any
that
mistakes,
can't allow anything to go other than the way they expect.
that can't allow things to go any way but the way they expect.
Boy, that feels way too familiar.
Boy, that feels way too
And it
familiar.
used to land on that part of me.
And it used to land on that part of me
I felt I was wrong.
that felt I was wrong.
There's something wrong here,
There's something wrong here,
but maybe it's not me.
but maybe it's not me.
Maybe the situation is in conflict with my values,
Maybe that situation is in conflict with my
and
value
it's going to feel wrong.
and it's going to feel wrong.
So there are things that feel wrong to me because they're in conflict with my values. Like, I believe that humans need space to not be perfect, or else we lose all creativity. We might as well automate it and have some AI do it because there won't be any humanity in it. Um, so, like, those types of things feel wrong to me. But just because, so now I've got a little departure, a detachment from it landing in, oh, I must be wrong because there's this wrong thing going on. I can discern and say, this really isn't isn't true with what matters to me. How I want to be treated, how I want other humans to be treated. It
Yeah,
feels wrong. Oh, it hits my it feels wrong part. Kind of like the way my dad used to treat me when he was drunk. It really hits my, oh, that's not that doesn't feel good to me. It
yeah,
feels wrong is a sensor. It allows us to know when we are veering off course from what matters to us and when we're veering off course. The difficulty is until you kind of get that identity shaken up a little bit so that it's less of an issue, everything kind of lands there. It's like fly paper for everyone's perfectionism, including our own.
I think that the more wrong we feel inside, the more we scramble to try to get to the pinnacle of perfectionism to prove that
Mhm.
we're okay a little bit. And so, people that require perfectionism for other people, I strongly suspect there's an iceberg of feeling of wrongness underneath. And they're like requiring perfectionism to try to control their world to make themselves feel safe.
You just want to tapping in that.
Yeah. Even though, are you leading it? I'm sorry.
You
Or am
are,
I?
I
Okay.
think you're on. Pinnacle of perfectionism
Yeah.
just has me all excited. I can't wait to hear what else comes from you.
Even though I want to scramble up that pinnacle of perfection
Even though part of me so wants to scramble up that pinnacle of perfectionism,
to try to escape the sense of wrongness.
yeah, as to escape this sense of wrongness.
The truth is, it's just the other side of the coin.
Truth is, it's just the other side of the coin.
And perfectionism is just as fake as wrongness.
And perfectionism is just as fake as wrongness.
I get to be a human,
I get to be a human,
imperfectly perfect,
imperfectly perfect,
learning and discovering as I go,
learning and discovering as I go,
with no definitive sense of this is absolutely the right way.
with no definitive sense. So this is absolutely the right way.
And part of me really wants the absolute feeling,
And part of me really wants that absolute feeling.
but then I have no free will.
But then I have no free will or choice or creativity.
Yeah, I get to create.
flexibility. For me,
I get to create.
what if I get to create?
Eyebrow. I get to decide.
I get to decide.
Side of the eye. And maybe many of the choices are right.
And maybe many of the choices are all right.
Under the eye. And even some poor choices might lead me someplace new.
Yeah, some poor choices have often led me someplace new.
Under the nose. What if I get to play in this universe that loves me?
What if I get to play in this universe that loves me
Chin. And discover what's there.
and discover what's there?
Collarbone. It's a little scary to think that there's no definitive right and wrong choice.
There's no definitive right or wrong choice.
Under the arm, but no, as long as I'm not intentionally harming others.
As long as I'm not intentionally harming others or myself,
Yeah, top of the head, you might be okay.
it might be okay.
I think there's a lot of decisions in our lives that are not definitive. Like, I did a lot of landmark, and I don't, some things I don't love about landmark education, but one of the things they taught us is sometimes it's like chocolate or vanilla. There's no moral choice about it. Do you want chocolate ice cream or vanilla ice cream? It's just a choice. That neither one, and I used to believe like if I chose the right one, somehow I could find some moral belief behind it that would lead me away from the sense of wrongness I had in my body versus it doesn't really matter.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of decisions in our lives that don't really matter. But when we have that sense of wrongness in us, I think we're trying to make every decision be this very moralistic chance to escape this wrongness. And that's very stressful.
There was a question in the chat I'd like to address.
Yeah.
So let's say that someone's at a place in their life where I have them say, I am wrong. And I ask, how true does that feel? They say, absolutely. It's a 10. There's no room. It's absolutely true. I am wrong. Now, that human being, if we look at the things that they do in their life that don't come out perfectly by their view or someone else's, um, it's going to all land right back in that big core identity. I am wrong. See, proof. And so when I said like shake up our identity, if you tap on like, even though I'm absolutely convinced I am wrong, and I refuse to let anyone change that. What if I'm wrong? I'm wrong. See how that shakes things up? What if I'm wrong that I'm wrong? What if I'm wrong that I'm wrong? At least I'd be wrong about being wrong. And I am wrong. What if I'm wrong about being wrong all the time?
That's powerful.
What if I'm wrong about being wrong all the time? Is every aspect of me wrong? And this is where you can, so this is about a real skill of calm and confident. So I am wrong, I believe, is supposed to make us anxious. It is such like a nail in the foot. It it's so harsh on our nervous system, our identity. Um, it's designed to it. I believe that the body is constantly like wanting us to ameliorate, calm that down.
Yeah.
So one of the real skills is if you know that this is about yourself, look, I get this I am wrong feeling. Oh, even though here's this I am wrong feeling again. Hi. Yeah, I might be wrong that I'm wrong. And I'm open to calming myself right here, right now, seeing the whole situation more clearly. So that's the calming part. The confidencing part comes from both working on the identity of I am wrong, like we've been, And I encourage you, if this is a big deal for you, go back and look at the recording, spend some time with it, really feel into it at a pace that's right for you. But the confidence thing can come from, well, my kindness is not wrong. I would argue with anyone who says that, yeah, there are people that'll argue that my kindness is wrong, but actually I like my kindness. I'm generous. I used to be generous because I needed to be perfect, but now, I really like my generous.
Yeah.
Um, I come through for people. Not everyone, not all the time. Um, but I like that I've got the capacity, the competence to be able to do that. I brushed my teeth today, and that's not wrong. It's not wrong to brush your teeth, you know, and I let myself off the hook, and that's not wrong because it wasn't something that I really needed to be hooked up and hung for.
Yeah.
You start building up a level of self-awareness that strengthens. I'll call it confidencing because you're taking things that really matter to you, whatever those are, and you're building up an energy that allows that part of your identity to quiet down. When we're shifting something that's really core for us, um, Gary Craig used to use the tabletop analogy. So if you've got a lot of things in your life and there's this one big pole right in the middle, it's one of those tables that is, you know, has the base and the big pole, and that's the I am wrong, and you've got your perfectionism and everything else on top. It'd be really helpful if you built up some other legs, confidencing it up before the other one stops being what drives the good things in your life, the things that matter.
And I think
Um,
I love what you're saying, and I think one of the we did a call on Sunday about play, which is like for me the other two sides of the coin are wrongness and perfectionism, but the difference, something different from them is play and confidence. Like, could I try this? Could I make some mistakes? Can I? And I think it's really important if you're doing brain surgery or heart surgery, please don't play. Like if someone's gonna die, that's not the place we really want to play. But most of us have so much area in our world where we can play and try things. And if we bring the wrong creamer in the coffee, no one's actually going to die unless they're like deathly allergic to dairy or something. But, there's a lot of room where we get to play, and that builds confidence. And I think that we get to try these baby steps as we go. And like someone shared in the chat that they once failed a class to see if they could survive it. And I get that. Like, when we've never had an experience where not our brain isn't sure, it's like that might be the end of me, and then we're like, oh, it happened and I'm okay. Like, to me that's really powerful in a way to like say, yeah, I can survive this thing. And that's a form of play. It's a very serious form of play perhaps, but I love that they share that. um, so if you'd like to do any tapping, we have a little, do you want to have hands, Rick? We have a little bit of time.
you. Um, so if you choose to raise your hand by clicking on reactions and raise hand, please know that we are recording this and it'll be put out on our center when we use YouTube to show the video. So it'll be there too. So if anyone feels really drawn and ready to do that, um, otherwise we are also open to questions and or things that you'd like us to focus on that are part of this I am wrong. Cathy and I can continue to tap as well.
Yeah. So obviously, if anyone wants to raise their hand, I'd just like to invite you to just tune into your body, your system. And we've shared a lot of concepts today. We've tapped on some things, and just let yourself notice what's most alive for you. I believe our energy system is very, very wise, and it will bring up the next right thing for you to heal around this. So if you have a particular memory coming up
I have
around,
a note that we took before the class. I'm going to just trust that right now. Oh, there's a hand,
yep,
isn't there?
yes.
Why don't I see it?
Oh, it's a thumbs up, not a
Oh,
hand.
thumbs up. Okay. Um, yeah, so you and I talked about like one of the, oh, yeah, I'm actually drawn to do this tapping that you and I talked about. Thank you for raising your hand. It's the avoidance, like
Uh,
one of the things that if if this is really touched home, there's the avoiding anything that might be wrong or criticized, as well as
right.
the sensitivity. And I feel like I want to use the remaining time to do at least a few rounds on that. Is that okay?
That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, but we do have a. Do you want to do you want to have the person lower their hand or?
Um, leave the hand. Let's just do a round and see where we are.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Even though this belief has had its repercussions,
Even though this belief has had its repercussions,
may have avoided some things that were important to me.
I may have avoided some things that are important to me.
I may have let criticism knock me out
I may have had let criticism knock me out
of something that was important to me
of something that was important to me
or someone.
or someone.
I acknowledge and respect how I have felt
I acknowledge and respect how I felt
and the beliefs that I've held.
and the beliefs I've held.
I'm starting to get the clues about where they came from.
I've started to get the clues about where they've come from.
I want to build my confidence.
I want to build my confidence.
I really want to confidence myself.
I really want to confidence myself.
It doesn't happen just on its own.
It doesn't happen just on its own.
It rarely happens just on its own.
It rarely happens just on its own.
And the I, what's important to me?
What's important to me?
Is it wrong that they're important to me?
Is it wrong that they're important to me?
And I've had that belief at times.
I've had that belief at times.
But there are things that are important to me
There are things that are important to me
that are absolutely not wrong.
that are absolutely not wrong.
And I can value those about myself,
And I can value those about myself,
even if quietly and intimately in my own energy.
even if quietly and intimately in my own energy.
Sometimes to respond to a question, if you're feeling tired, even exhausted, um, the I am wrong energy is 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 like trying to hold everything together. There's so much to that energy. And if you start relaxing it, oftentimes the body goes, "Oh, God, I'm so tired of this." You can. Usually, if we're avoiding it, it's not just because, doing the work, then we feel tired. I often go and rest after doing this kind of identity work for myself. Um, so please, I invite you to take to take care of yourself. Okay. Um, yeah. Did I miss anything there that we had touched on?
I know, I think that was great.
Okay. So we have a few minutes. I'm going to go ahead and if you have your hand raised, I asked you to unmute. Hello.
Hi. Um, I just, uh,
If you could speak up, that would be great.
okay. Is that a bit better?
A little.
I,
Thanks.
yeah, I don't have earbuds at the moment, so I'm just kind of speaking in the general direction of the mic. So I don't know if it's in tune, but I was thinking that since that came up in the chat, that it might fit to do a round on just that moment when I was told, "Oh, this shows us what kind of person you are." And I suppose let me to infer that that was a bad thing.
I've had my volume all the way up, Kate, and
Can you hear me?
I
Okay.
really can't hear you. Um,
Okay, no problem.
I think I heard that you want us to touch on that, like something happened and you were told that you were bad for putting other people in pain. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna have Kathy do my echo.
Yeah,
So
great. Okay.
thank you. So if one of the, as Kate mentioned, thank you. Sometimes we have a trauma, a very specific event, that when we when the event ends, we get all this blame put on us, or something like, you're a bad person. And so I'd like to just do a tapping for even though they called me wrong or bad. Or would you like to lead that, Kathy?
No, go ahead if you're up for it.
Okay. Even though they told me I was bad,
Even though they told me I was bad,
and being bad is wrong.
and being bad is wrong.
So I am wrong.
So I am wrong.
Even though I was really vulnerable,
Even though I was really vulnerable,
they said I was bad.
they said I was bad.
They were convinced.
They were convinced.
And they needed me to look ashamed.
And they needed me to look ashamed.
And I know how to do that.
And I know how to do that.
I just have to decide
I just have to decide
that I am wrong
that I am wrong
in my core.
in my core.
Tough hit. They said I was bad.
They said I was bad.
Eyebrow. I was bad.
I was bad.
Side of the eye. I was a bad girl.
I was a bad girl.
Under the eye. I was a bad boy.
I was a bad boy.
Under the nose. I was a bad person.
I was a bad person.
Chin. I don't want to be a bad person.
I don't want to be a bad person.
Hold on. It's wrong to be a bad person.
It's wrong to be a bad person.
And I didn't know that that was so bad.
I didn't know that was so bad.
I was doing what was right for me.
I was doing what was right for me.
Stop it. Must mean that I'm wrong.
Must mean that I'm wrong.
No wonder I've been confused all these years.
And no wonder I've been confused all these years.
Sometimes when we're blamed for something that really was our primitive brain saying, you need to get out of here, you need to get away, you need to not do this. I've done a lot of tapping with people that were told that they were a bad person for not letting Uncle Joe, or not wanting to sit on Uncle Joe's lap. And you could imagine that, like, if we have an intuition that Uncle Joe's not a safe and yummy person to sit with, but our intuition gets overridden. Top of the head. I want to feel my own guidance.
I want to feel my own guidance.
Eyebrow. And that's been called wrong.
And that's been called wrong.
Yeah, I want to feel my own identity.
I want to feel my own identity.
Under the eye, who I truly am.
Who I truly am.
Under the nose, who I'm growing into being.
Who I'm growing into being.
Chin, but they labeled some of those really bad.
They labeled some of those really bad.
And they needed me to look like I was wrong.
They needed me to look like I was wrong.
Under the arm, no matter how certain I was.
No matter how certain I was.
They needed me to look like I was wrong.
They needed me to look like I was wrong.
Right down to my core.
Right down to my core. I think as we go through this and we gain more confidence in ourselves, I think that when we're children, like, these big, powerful adults seem like this omnipotent, like, very powerful, must be right things. As we get older and get more experience, we can realize that just because somebody really wants or needs something doesn't mean we have to be the one providing it. So it can be like, oh, let me look. I like to look inside first. Did I do something that I really consider wrong? And if so, I want to apologize and make amends and try trying to make it so I don't repeat that mistake. But there's times when I'm just like, wow, you know what? That's, you wanted me to call you back immediately and I just didn't want to. And just because I didn't want to doesn't mean I'm not a good friend. It doesn't mean I don't love you. But if you need to make it those things, I can't stop you. But that's about you, not me. And so there's just a process we go through as we can kind of separate. When we're little, those people have absolute control over our bodies pretty much. And as we're adults, we're like, you know what? You have needs and wants, but that doesn't mean I have to meet them. And we get to
And
have a lot
the
more
strategies,
freedom.
the ways that you want to get your needs and wants, and to protect your triggers and everything else.
Yeah.
We're sensitive souls. I would guess most of us that are attracted to this work and this type of topic. And we hope that what you feel is that, one, you're not alone. Mercifully, I'm not alone. You're not alone. It helps. We have an ongoing community. We have the Thriving Now circles, which meet and we do tapping together. We also have the Thriving Now Center, a place for thoughtful, considered replies or whatever you want to share with the community. A lot of us are finding that also really helpful during these times. We want you to have your emotional freedom and to have your own clarity, and that when other people are feeling like you're wrong or bad or something, that you have a clarity within inside of you that you can tap into. If there's really good news, those of us that have held really strongly to an I am wrong have as a grounding in that we want to do what's right. And as that becomes more inwardly clear, that pillar becomes very strong, something that you can rely on, something that can resist the noisy um, blames and shames and criticisms of wherever they may come from. Um, that's that's the value to me of building this skill, of practicing it, the calming it down, and then the confidencing around your own clarity, what matters to you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all for showing up. I know this is a really tough topic, and I admire your courage. Really welcome your vulnerability and your sharing. And we hope that this gives you some healing direction and some opportunities to release old pains because you do deserve it. Thank you so much for doing this work.
All right. Thank you. Bye for now.